I do office hours all over the world, at least before the pandemic. And, about once a month, I'd be at some exotic location, meeting you face to face and enjoying your company and learning from you and trying to understand sort of where all the future of this education stuff is going. And so I welcome you. Here, let me make sure I turn my phone off. That could be exciting. There we go. Phone's in silent mode. At least it won't ring. And so during the pandemic, I sort of started doing these things online, and we've had a lot of fun. We do them about once a month, and we catch up on things. And so the agenda for today that I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you some of the new stuff I've done since we last were online to show you. I built a whole new course since then. And then I'm going to talk. I'm going to give, after I sort of show you all the new stuff, then I'm going to give my own little TED Talk. I'll call it a Chuck Talk. It's like a TED Talk. And I'm going to talk about women in computing and my view of women in computing. And it's a TED Talk. And there's lots of people who have lots of opinions about why we have difficulties getting enough diversity in computing. And part of everything I do, the kinds of courses that I build, the way I distribute those courses, the way I market those courses, the way I describe those courses, the way I name those courses, Python for everybody, Pi 4E, is in a sense to create a broader set of people that we can bring into technology and not just make it be these sort of super high-end computer geeks, which create this kind of weird exclusive club. And I'm going to talk for 10 to 15 minutes about my own views on that. And you may disagree with me, and that's okay because we got to chat. And so you can disagree with me or not. I'm going to make my case as to why I think it's wrong. And I will just let you know that the people who disagree with me on this are generally much younger than me. And so I'm going to take a historical perspective that starts in the 1970s and before. And most of the people who are expert on this topic weren't even born in the 1970s, let alone 1980s, let alone 1990s. So I will be interested to hear if you think, now maybe I'm just practicing for a real TED Talk. It'd be interesting if you think that my narrative holds together, if it doesn't hold together, how it could be improved, what I get right, what I get wrong. Whenever I'm teaching, I'm always looking for input and I'm always looking for learning. I'm looking for my own learning, right? I'm going to pitch an idea to you and you're going to tell me what you think about it, and then I'm going to get better at it. And maybe between us, me giving the presentation and you listening to and reacting to the presentation. And then after I give my little Chuck Talk, Chuck X at Ann Arbor, we should make a little logo, Tim, where it says like Chuck X at Ann Arbor with the red letters. We probably can't do that quick enough for this show. I was gonna do that, and then it kind of snuck up on me in the holidays and the first week of class, because it is the first week of class. We are here at the University of Michigan face to face. A lot of schools didn't go back face to face, and I'm pretty happy that we're going back face to face. I don't speak for the university, and I just so don't say that I'm disagreeing with the president of the university or anything. But my rough feeling throughout this pandemic, and it's really been for almost 18 months now, my feeling is that we at the University of Michigan have a unique opportunity because we can require vaccinations. We have extensive testing. We have a University of Michigan hospital. We have places for people to isolate if they have to isolate. And we're very compliant. I wear this mask in a very proud way. I don't feel like I'm being sort of like losing my rights by wearing this mask. I think I'm gaining rights by wearing the mask. And I'm protecting myself as much as I'm protecting everybody else. And so I think that in some ways, on this campus in Ann Arbor, we have as good a chance at finding our way slowly back to normal. And I think that as part of the University of Michigan being leaders in the best, I think part of our job is to lead the country back to normal. And believe me, if the university had said, no, we're going online for a couple of weeks, I wouldn't care. You know me, I'm like online dude. I mean, that's my thing, that's my jam. I am happy to teach lectures with my pajamas on. It just is no big deal for me. And all my stuff is all recorded, all my assessments are online. For me to go online is no big deal. But to me, that's not the point. Just because you can go online doesn't mean that you should. And I see as a responsibility of the University of Michigan and other leading schools like us, if we feel like the risk reward is right, we have to look at the risk. There is risk. Everything we do has risk. Me coming to this studio today has risk. But you can't say there is risk, therefore we're not going to do it. And that's, I think, an important part of how we're all going to find our way out of this pandemic. And one thing that we know was during fall semester, which we were live last semester as well, that classrooms were not a major vector for infections. Live classrooms were not a major vector for infections. So the fact that we did this last semester and there was some risk, we learned something from that. We did research on ourselves by our very actions. We have learned something. And that is that if everybody's vaxxed and they're not crammed into rooms too tightly, and we wear masks when we're indoors, and we have easy access to tests, we could have better access to tests, we can get through it. And, thank heaven we're learning that, I mean, I'm not an expert, but it does seem as though the Omicron variant is A, aggressive in terms of its transmission, and B, I now, first time ever, I now have 3 people in my closest family who got COVID. And they were all vaccinated, they were all boosted, and they all were highly compliant wearing masks, and yet they got COVID. And the good news is because of the vaccination, they were all miserable for about 2 days, and then they got better, and then they tested negative, and we had Christmas and holidays. And so, there is a way. There is a way out of this, and there will be a future, and I look forward to the time that I can get back on airplanes and come visit you all around the world. But for now, this will have to be what it is. And so let me just see if there's any. Khalid, I'm from Afghanistan and taking Python for Everybody at Coursera, but I want to use the join University of Michigan as a Bachelor of Artificial Intelligence. Is it possible to get admission for a scholarship? Well, that's a great question, and this is a standard question we always get. And I will just tell you that coming to the University of Michigan, I mean, again, I'm not speaking for the university, right? Coming to the University of Michigan as an undergraduate is very difficult. I'm not saying there's no scholarships, but scholarships are hard to find. There's a lot of people get money from the U.S. federal government, U.S. citizens, and those who come from far away to our bachelor's degree usually have well-to-do families and have something figured out and have worked really hard to get there. The easier way to come to the United States for an education is always the master's degree. Now, the master's degree is expensive, but the good news is it's way easier to get in if you have a good bachelor's degree. Part of admissions is always to figure out if you're going to succeed. It's not just like, do we like you or not? We don't want to admit people who come here and fail. We really do not want every semester 20% of our students like running for the exits because it was too hard. We do want to know before you're admitted that you're going to have a chance of succeeding, because we want you to, when we admit you, we want you to succeed. We don't want to, flunking, taking your money and making you fail. It does not make us look good. Believe me, that is not the way to make money. We make money by bringing good students that we can add value to, and then you go out into the world, right? So master's degree is better. The problem with the PhD is, again, the PhD is almost all in a sense, scholarship-based. You're paid to get a PhD, but then that is a very, very tough path to follow, because you have to be amazing to get into it as a PhD. And so the master's degree is that moment where you complete a bachelor's at a decent school in your own country. You have some money, maybe take some loans out or whatever. And so master's degree for me is the way in, right, to the University of Michigan. It is the way in. So that's so. Ked, do you think websites like Coursera will offer courses that provide credits in the near future? What do you think needs to change to enable this? Okay, so that's a good question. I don't think that schools like the University of Michigan or Duke University are ever going to offer college credit through Coursera. I don't think that'll ever happen. We have way too much obsession with controlling the environment in which our courses are given to count them as credit. It's just not going to happen in Coursera. I believe there will be places that give you college credit. Now, that college credit, unfortunately, is going to be seen by any university like University of Michigan as transfer credit. And universities accept transfer credit in different ways. So you can't come here and go get a bunch of transfer credit from a bunch of sources and come walking into our university and take 2 classes and get a bachelor's degree. It's just not going to happen. And the problem is that to some degree universities see certain courses that are their specialty. They're like, you could take a psychology class at your school, but somehow it's not as cool as the psychology class. So it's like, well, you get general credit, but it doesn't meet the psychology requirement. That's just an example. And so transfer credit is troublesome unless that transfer credit is already been aligned. So you take a psychology class from a place that we are already assured to accept. That comparison of transfer credit is something that's dynamic and changes all the time and revisited. And so if you're thinking about getting credit at a low cost or other school and then coming to another school, you have to kind of limit how much you do. And so it's common here in the States for students to go to a 2-year school. It's inexpensive, it's close to home, you don't have debt, and then go to a 4-year school for the last 2 years. And that happens here at the University of Michigan a lot. I will say this, that unless you're careful, a lot of that 2 years turns into about a net effect of saving 1 year, not saving 2 years. And so you find yourself often on a 5-year pattern where you have 2 years at a community college and then 3 years at a place like the University of Michigan. But that's not a bad way to go for a lot of people. And if you're in the United States and you want to come to University of Michigan, going to a 2-year school and being outstanding and then applying as a junior is not a bad way to go, but there's going to be some kind of a little bit of loss in there, but you're still going to find your way in, and it's actually easier to get into the University of Michigan as a junior than it is as a freshman. That seems counterintuitive, but if you think about admissions, part of what we know when you're coming in as a 2-year student is that we know that you are capable of handling college level material and doing well. And so if you got 60 credits from a school, even though it's not our school, and you've got, mostly A's and a few B's, and you're like, well, I guess you can do college, and we're not going to worry that you're going to come here and then fail. And so sadly, again, admission is trying to make sure you can do it, and freshman admission is the thing where we always feel at the greatest risk, and so they want to make sure that you're really strong before you come in as a freshman. Richard, thank you for hosting us online. Do you feel there's another programming language that will overtake Python in popularity? No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe JavaScript. The problem is that if you look, there's always a new language like Rust, like Scala. These languages come and they seem like they're the greatest thing ever, and then they find their place. And their place is never as dramatic as replacing everything else. So Python, for better, for worse, given that now there are tens of millions of people that know Python, there are companies that make their money with Python. Why? There's a whole infrastructure, there's jobs, there's how can a new language called GORP that I invent tomorrow, no matter how good it is, and I can imagine improvements in Python, I could make a better language. I bet I could. That's not the point. That's not the point. Python is a thing now. Python is infrastructure. Python is everywhere. And all the languages that are old and boring are actually the ones that matter the most. And that's where it's like I'm teaching you Latin. I'm teaching you the classics, Greek, as it were. And so, you know, Python will always have a place for those things Python is good at, and there will be other languages. Yep. Like that? Yeah, thank you. So, so basically, sorry, I got someone's talking in my ear. I had to move the mouse, the mouse there. So in terms of languages, you have to realize, and this is one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, and that is, what is the difference between an advanced beginning programmer and someone you're willing to hire? And that's something I've thought a lot about, and I've talked on previous ones. And it turns out the people that are the most amazing to me are not people that are good at one language, but people who can pick the next language up really fast and then become expert in that. And so the skill that's in my head that makes me worth hiring is not my Java ability, my JavaScript ability, my Python ability, or even my Fortran ability. It's the fact that I can look at a problem and I can break it down. And yeah, I happen to type Java some days, and I type Python other days, and I type PHP other days. Those are just tools. Those are not the problem-solving skills. Working with people, breaking down hard problems, coming up with designs where the ultimate code will be elegant when it's all said and done. That's the magic skill, and that's part of what I want to ultimately teach you. And that's why when I teach you Python, I don't teach you like every little tricky Python trick to become a master of Python, because I don't want you to be a master of anything. I want you to be a master of problem solving. And that's learn Python, learn JavaScript, learn PHP, learn Django, learn Postgres, learn all that stuff. All that is doing is building in your mind a network of concepts, of ways to solve problems. And you can look at SQL. Whether you ever write it or not, SQL is a way to solve a problem. So I love that you're asking questions. So I want to hear your opinion on going to university or such to become a programmer, because I know a lot of people who are self-taught and they have really good jobs and are really good programmers. Randy? So I would say that there are plenty of people who are self-taught that are successful, but the problem is that it is harder to get that first job. A university is a way to kind of, the degree doesn't mean that you're a great programmer, right? It doesn't mean that. You'd be surprised at how bad the programmers are that get programming degrees from me hiring them, right? And as a matter of fact, I don't think that's what even Google wants. Google wants you to have taken a bunch of classes, but they're not, the classes you learn in a computer science degree are generally not the things that Google wants you to do. But they know if you can learn those things, then you can learn the things Google wants you to do. And so what does university teach you, right? If I just said it doesn't teach you how to be a good programmer, university teaches you how to learn quickly. That's what we teach you. We teach you how to deal with people, how to deal with stress, how to balance things, how to be committed to something and stick to it. 4 years, that's a long time to do something completely abstract. And in those 4 years of college, you have some cool professors that are funny and tell jokes, and you have some professors that aren't so funny and don't even tell jokes, and it's hard to learn from those professors. And you might say, well, let's get rid of all those professors from whom it is difficult to learn. And the answer is no. What are you learning from the professors who are difficult to learn from? How to learn from a professor who is difficult to learn from. That's the lesson that you're learning. And so to say that college is your programmer preparation is wrong. And frankly, my goal in life, I think everyone should go to college. I don't think you should all major in computer science. I think you should go to college because it's part of what makes you a useful grown-up, right? It's growing up. when you're 16, you're not the same as when you're 24. And I've told this story before. In undergraduates, I meet kids who are, 16 and 17, and they're coming into my office and crying because they got like a 2-day late point on a thing. And you're like, wow, you're so just like, you don't see the world very well. And then I see them again at graduation, and they're like, they got everything figured out, and they're awesome, and you want to hire them. And you're like, how exactly did you go from confused and crying and uncertain to being confident? And the answer is college. But not necessarily exactly what we taught you in college. The fact that you had to sit and work on something completely abstract for 4 years and not give up. Not giving up is what we teach in college. So, game lovers, I'm from India, taking Python for Everybody. Please suggest to me which course I should do after Python for Everybody. I want to have more in-depth about there. So, okay. Well, so let me then use that from game lovers. Let me just use that as a segue into my website that answers that question. What class should you take in what order? And so I'm going to go to online.drchuck.com. And if you actually go www.pr4e.com, pr4e.com, Programming for Everybody, it actually redirects to this. But Dr. Chuck Online. So I've had this website for a long time, but given some of my recent things, my plan, I'm starting to use this website more. And so if you go to one of my, like www.py4e.com, and you click on instructor, that used to go to my personal homepage, drchuck.com, and my blog and all that stuff. And it doesn't anymore. So I changed all the websites, web applications for everybody, Django for everybody, Postgres for everybody, and Python for everybody. And they all come to this page. And that's because I'm beginning to feel more like I am building a curriculum than just a bunch of courses. And this curriculum is where a person or group has decided that this is a good sequence of things to do. And so if you go right now to online.drchuck.com or www.pr4e.com, you will see this page. Let me make it a little bit bigger. This is a curriculum. Oh, I'll just read it. This is a series of courses designed to take students from knowing nothing about programming to the point where they have confidence to consider a career as a software developer, designer, or take further education. That is my personal goal now, not just teach one course, but to teach you to be a professional programmer. Okay? And so this is my curriculum, and it's under construction. And so the one thing, some of you have taken my course, Internet History, Technology, and Security on Coursera. And some of you may know that that was the first course I ever taught on Coursera, back when University of Michigan had 6 professors on Coursera. And Coursera itself had like 40 professors. I was in that list. And I didn't teach Python for Everybody. That was a couple of years later. I taught Internet History, Technology, and Security. And so that's been on Coursera for a long time. It's free. I don't make any money off of it. Nobody makes any money off of it. But people take it and they really like it. Well, I was contacted by an organization called FreeCodeCamp. And Bo, and they take my stuff. And so if you go to like Python for Everybody, for example, you will see that you can take Python for Everybody on Coursera, you can take it on edX, you can take it on FutureLearn, and if you're University of Michigan, you can take it on Coursera and edX for free. But you can also take it for free on FreeCodeCamp. A lot of word free there. So if you go to FreeCodeCamp, you see that I have a page here. Yeah, well, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't pause. No, don't play. Oh, it didn't play. So what FreeCodeCamp does, I'll go back to the beginning. FreeCodeCamp, I gave them all the videos, and they basically turn this into a 13-hour and 40-minute video of all of this stuff at the same time. So you could think about this as like I am now binge watchable. You can literally, and so as I talk to them, Quincy and Bo, as I talk to them, we talk about binge watching education, right? And how can we teach people sitting on a couch with a big screen TV in front of them? How can we do that? How can we create an educational channel, like a cable TV educational channel, which has been my dream forever, is to create programming. So when I first saw them doing this, where they take my material and just concatenate it end to end and put some chapters in it, I'm like, that's a weird way to go, but go ahead. Well, that now has 3 million views. Python for Everybody, as one 13-hour binge watch, has 3 million views, and it's free. And you go to mypyfree.com and you can take all the assignments and do all the homework. And if you look, so if we go to DJ Free, Django for Everybody. No, that's not fair. That's not good. Something's wrong there. There we go. Django for Everybody. What did I do wrong? Okay, I must have typed it wrong. You can see that there is a FreeCodeCamp for Django for Everybody. And that's 18 hours of a binge watch of Django. And it's got almost 500,000 views, and it's only been up for a couple of months. And then if you go and find my Web Applications for Everybody, which is my PHP class, you can binge watch that one. 14 hours of PHP. Pretty cool, huh? So, but back to the curriculum. So the curriculum is something that I've now put an ordering on, and that is my recommended order with which to take these classes. And I actually say that you should take Internet History, Technology, Security first, but you don't have to. And then Python for Everybody is second, and then Django for Everybody is third, and then Web Applications, PHP, all that stuff, fourth, and then Postgres. Now, here's the thing, and I've talked about this for a couple of office hours now. I'm building new ones. And I talked about the hardware one, and so you can look at this list, right? You can look at this list here. That is about half of what is my grand plan of building programming for everybody. Programming for everybody. And what I mean is I will have enough courses in a while, I don't have time yet, so that the last one of these courses is internship, which means I'm going to come up with, I am working on a plan to do a distributed, scalable, worldwide internship for anyone on the planet. But here's the problem. I could do that right now. The problem with internships is that the problems you're going to solve in an internship, first you're just going to go get people coffee. But after a while, you actually want to do some work. And so you got to come up with work that interns can do. And so if you've ever been part of an internship program at a company like IBM or Microsoft, they have like a whole team of people that works so that that internship is a good experience. There's training, there's off-site trips, there is mentors, there's all kinds of stuff to make sure that an internship is successful. And literally, you have to actually know, you can't just go like, you know what, I don't want to take any classes, I just want to show up as an intern. I'll help, I bet I can figure it out. And the answer is no. I will not work with you in an internship if I'm not going to get something out of it. And for me to work with you as an intern, you have to bring some talent to the table, because I'm not going to tutor you one-on-one like, hey, let's just meet for 3 hours a week and I'll teach you JavaScript. No! I have MOOCs that teach you JavaScript. You better take my MOOC, and I want to make sure that you pass the exam and get everything right in that MOOC, and not only take JavaScript, but I want you to know Django and all this other stuff. And once you know enough, then I will accept you for an internship. And so the internship is kind of your pre-graduation. So I don't have enough courses yet to start this internship. Otherwise, you would see it on this list. You'd see, oh, apply for internship. But before you apply for internship, you've got to have done every one of these classes. And I've got like 4 more coming. I got years of work to do. This is a 5 to 10 year. I call this whole thing about the distributed internship leading to work. This is this is my last moonshot of my career. You can tell that I'm not exactly young, right? I got gray hair. I don't have a lot of hair, so I'm not exactly young. So at some point, I'm going to tire of working 50 hours a week banging on a keyboard. But for the next 10 years, I'm going to build courses, software, infrastructure, etc., to get to this point. And you will know if I am graduating, say, 1,000 professional programmers a month, 1,000. If I can get to the point where 1,000 people are getting jobs per month, then I've succeeded. I want to make a scalable programming education, scalable to millions, and then a internship, and then eventually you'll go get a job. And I want that scalable to thousands. I mean, thousands a month, tens of thousands per year. I mean, there's a lot to do in that. And so the question is, what should you take next? And the answer is, come here to online.drchuck.com and take them in order. Take Internet History, Python for everybody, Django for everybody, web applications for everybody. You can even binge watch them, right? We've got them in so many forms for you to take. If you want certificates in Coursera, you get certificates in Coursera. If you want them in, most of them are in edX, FutureLearn, and away you go. And so this is my curriculum, and it is incomplete, and it is not finished. Now, the one thing that I did do, for those of you who are familiar with all these things, and a lot of you have taken lots of my classes, the one thing that I did as part of the FreeCodeCamp is I made a website that captures everything that's inside the Coursera class. So if you go to Web Applications for Everybody, if you go to Python for Everybody in Coursera, there's this Pi for E site. You go to Django for Everybody, there's this DJ for E site. Well, if you go to Internet History, Technology, and Security, there was no site, which means that like teachers around the world use these sites to teach their classes. Well, FreeCodeCamp said, hey, why don't we do something with your Internet History stuff? And I was like, yeah, that's my favorite course. And so I made lessons. I made all the quizzes are here. There's quizzes. And so I took what was in Coursera and I pulled it out and made it for free. And you'll notice it's not ihts.com because I couldn't get that one. Everyone loves 4-letter domain names. So I'm like, well, I might as well promote my Programming for Everybody brand and use ihts.prfree.com. And I think I might be able to, I don't know if I set it up, pi4e.pr4e.com. I don't know if I set that up or not. I should. I'll set it up. So the idea is Programming for Everybody is my curriculum, right? Python for Everybody is that course. IHTS is a course in that curriculum. And so you can watch this with lessons, and if you go into lessons, you'll see it in more, smaller chunks, or you can go and you can watch this on FreeCodeCamp. So the one thing that's interesting is that in the FreeCodeCamp version of Internet History, Technology, and Security, let's see, go down and see the video here, play the video on YouTube. That one has 130,000 and it's about been 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since I think this game. We just got this out a couple weeks ago, right? Seems like we were doing it during the holidays. So one of the things that I did on this that I really love is this is the first time that I produced a video with the idea of you watching it on the couch. And so you see me as you see me doing things like you see me talking, and then I introduce a video, and then the video plays, right? And so here's Larry Smarr, and the video plays, but then you see me introducing it. And so I really made it, come on, play. I made it so that, I got to go back a little bit. Yeah, so I interspersed all these things. So if you've taken this course on Coursera, it basically has videos, and you click, and then there's me, and then you click, and you click, and you click, and you click. And so part of what they did in MOOCs, the beginning of MOOCs, is everyone said, keep it short, make it 7 minutes. And I did. But now what we've done is we've taken those 7-minute pieces and interspersed them with the other videos. And so now what you see is, you see that, you see this thing. And the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to do another thing for FreeCodeCamp, where it is again sort of little intro pieces and then some content, content. And again, think of it as a binge watching education, right? Now this one I didn't reproduce it because all this video is from my original work that made Internet History, Technology, and Security. And so it's not, but this next one I'm going to make for FreeCodeCamp is literally the middle parts are produced specifically for binge watching. So it's every second is going to be designed for, in effect, binge watching, as if you're sitting on Netflix and you just are watching Internet History on Netflix, and then it would say, oh, ready to play the next episode? Yes, yes. This could be on Netflix as a bunch of episodes, but in FreeCodeCamp, it's just like one big 9.5-hour video. And FreeCodeCamp, turns out, they have figured out how to game the YouTube algorithm so that when they're doing this, they get a lot of views. Because if you take the course, each time you click back to take it, that's another view. And so it makes it so that these become very popular on YouTube very fast by making them long. Never thought of that, right? And so FreeCodeCamp's format is surprisingly clever. And FreeCodeCamp has tons of courses. FreeCodeCamp is working on undergraduate computer science degree. They just started talking about this, undergraduate computer science degree with credit. And we'll see how that happens. Okay, enough of Dr. Chuck talking. Let's see if we've got any good questions. I don't have a good example. I would, yeah, I don't know about how to fix the Taliban problem. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, Stephen. Thanks. Stephen is my teaching assistant. So there we go. 14 minutes of PHP is enough. Hey, don't laugh too much about PHP. A lot of people make a lot of money. Do you think FreeCodeCamp will succeed in their goal to produce a free computer science degree? I think the question is if, not is when, not if. I think it will be successful. I've seen things like edX has ways to give you college credit. There are places that will sort of give you credit that's not as they're not as picky as other places. My question, once it's done for FreeCodeCamp, and I talk to Quincy and Bo all the time about this, and they talked to me before it even started. The key thing to me is not just having a curriculum, but then having job placement. Because if you're going to have a low-cost or almost free bachelor's degree online, it's not going to have enough credibility to just walk in and get a job. But if we can layer on top of that some of this internship stuff I'm talking about, and then that internship makes it so that people are very successful at getting jobs at the end of a free bachelor's degree. So imagine that you take and you get a free bachelor's degree from FreeCodeCamp. And let's just guess that Thomas Edison University, because that's one of the places that Thomas Edison University or Thomas Edison College or whatever, that's where edX gives you credit. There's another thing called Saylor Academy, S-A-Y-L-O-R, Saylor Academy, and they can give you college credit. These are not from the world's most prestigious colleges. But let's just imagine that FreeCodeCamp builds a undergraduate thing where you're paying, let's just say, $30 a credit hour. And you get $30 a credit hour. We got a free online curriculum with all free materials. And we put an internship at the end of all that. And then we get people who get jobs after that whole curriculum. And you got a bachelor's of computer science from Thomas Edison, and you've done an internship, and now you go to work, and now you're a darn good employee. This is what happens when you build a new program. We at the School of Information built a bachelor's degree. We graduated 11 kids our first thing. And the world was like, where are they going to work? And then they all got jobs. And then we all kept track of them. And then the next time, we got 30 students. And we called up the first 11. And we said, hey, need any more employees? And they go, yeah! And then boom, there goes the 30. And now we're graduating 300 a year, and they all are getting jobs just fine. The point is is what you need to do when you build a program is you need to get people to get jobs, and then they're your alumni, and they're your alumni network, and they're the ones that help the next generations get jobs. And after a while, once you get to the point where you've got like 400, 500, 600, 700 people that have made it through that process, the name of your bachelor's degree is not going to matter, but it'll turn out that you will have a bachelor's degree from something. And then you're working at a place and you got a bachelor's degree, an accredited bachelor's degree from Thomas Edison or University of the People or the Dr. Chuck University, whatever we turn out to be that's accredited. Dr. Chuck will never be accredited. I don't have time for that. The fact that your university is not prestigious will not matter. What matters is if you're good and you're valuable and you're of value to the organization, then what you do is you bring prestige to the brand. And that's one thing you got to understand is that the University of Michigan graduates and what they do are the people that bring prestige to our brand. We can't take a person who's incapable of doing anything, slap a sticker on them and say University of Michigan, and now you don't have to work, you just show up and they just give you money and like feed you grapes and stuff, right? We have to find people who are going to be a credit to the university. So think of the same thing for FreeCodeCamp. The only thing that matters for FreeCodeCamp is the quality of their alumni. That's the only thing that matters. Can they do that? Absolutely. Absolutely. And they can make that to become a credible degree only if and only if they have alumni that are employed. That's the key to making a new degree is, are your alumni employed? That's the only thing that matters. At the University of Michigan School of Information, our alumni are employed. That's why we're good. And we have a lot of brand to help that happen. But if we didn't produce a good product and we didn't admit good students and then help them grow and become better, both as humans and as technologists, then we would have no brand. That'd be completely pointless. So to your question of will FreeCodeCamp succeed, I'm sure they will. The question is, it might be 5 years, right? It might be a while. And so there we go. Oh, and Ked asked the question, will the degree carry any weight? It depends. Yeah. So let's go down to, we'll answer the, I don't know anything about machine learning. Go ahead and learn on it from somebody else. Yeah. How to prepare for job interviews? Well, it depends on the kind of job that you're going to be getting. If you're going for a computer science job, you need to go to some of these like training sites, these like HackerRank and all that. I hate them. I absolutely hate those. I don't recommend them, but if it's the only way you're going to get a job, then go on HackerRank. It keeps you learning. You're solving hard problems. They're not actually the problems that the industry wants you to solve, but at least you can solve the ones that they're going to give you on the interview test. So that's kind of whatever. Yeah, Patrick, exactly. At least it will satisfy the degree required in order to get your resume looked at, but I agree you will need excellent job placement to back up free degree. Boom! Patrick said it. Just exactly what said it. Okay, why were there no office hours in December? That's right. So I'll tell you why there were no office hours in December, and that is because December is a weird month in the United States, and it's a weird month in academia, and because of the way the Thanksgiving break works, and then the week after Thanksgiving break, from the middle of November on, most of the people at the university are like looking toward the Christmas break. They just are. They're looking at the holiday break. And so Tim and I, we probably were both looking toward the holiday break, and then we didn't set it all up, and then we're like, whoa, you know, because the time we would have set it up would have kind of been Thanksgiving, which is already a break, and then everyone's brain kind of goes shut down for Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving happens, and then our brains kind of like go, you know, I just got to make it through the next week, and then holiday break, and so that was the problem. Is it was really more everybody's brain was like distracted, and it's not like Tim and I can't do this. we got to the point where we're like, hey, it's soon. And we're like, let's just heck with it and wait till January. And so that's why we didn't have one in December. There's no like deep meaning other than the fact that our brain started, we were like short timers. We're like, Christmas break. And so we don't have to have that happen. We just need to schedule it far enough in advance. And it turns out that's a great time. I'm always in a good mood toward the end of the classes I'm teaching on campus. So I could come in here, and I always have so much fun when I come in here talking to you all. And so, you know, that don't expect it's always going to be like that. It's just, I think Tim and I were just kind of like, okay, it's been a crazy year. Let's give ourselves a break. So there's a lot of work that happens in here, and so it's important for us to get our act together, even though I don't ever seem organized. Ken, are you liking that new Mac? I got one last week and it's a game changer. Well, we'll see. Yeah, I've had it for about 4 weeks, and I have my old Intel-based Mac, and I'm pretty happy with it. It seems to have, even in my software development, like on Sakai and in Java, it seems to have equivalent performance, and the fan never goes on. And so all my older Macs, I'd never had an M1 of any kind before. The M1 is way more power efficient, and so I like it. It feels good. I waited. I have a real keyboard. I have a real escape key. If I use the editor VI or Vim, I got to have an escape key. It's got a little finger thing to open it up, and it doesn't have any touch bar. And so I do like the Mac M1. Tim in the back has been playing with Mac M1s too, and so I think it's time. But the thing that got me to buy the Mac is the fact that you probably can't see it on the side here, but it's got an HDMI plug without an adapter. It's got a USB-C, and it's got a SD card adapter on it, and it's got a real earplug on it. And I'm like, hey, Apple. And so I was on strike. My last laptop that I replaced this with was a 2012 MacBook Pro. It was a heck of a computer. It had Intel i7 in it, 16 gig of RAM, and a terabyte SSD. It was a beautiful computer. But literally, I'd worn the stuff off the keycaps because I've been using it for like 8 years. And now that I touch this, it's kind of like everything was kind of like floppy on that computer because I had beat the heck out of it, took it all over the world. And so I finally just bought this M1, and I was ready to just like throw it away, but it's making me happy for now. So, hey, Dr. Chuck, how's the new Apple laptop? Just said, please recommend the best website for a Cloud DB. Oh, crap. What's the name of it? What's the name of it? I hate searching. Don't take my screen. Don't take my screen so I can search. There's a company that I really like. Don't take my screen yet. What's it called? What's it called? Elephant SQL. Okie dokie. Now you can take my screen. Okay. So Elephant SQL, Postgres as a service. So those of you who have used Postgres for everybody, you know that the class gives you a little baby Postgres database, which goes away after like a month. And I get an email every morning when your databases are being deleted because that actual PG free runs on a really tiny server. So I can't afford to give you a database your whole life, right? So I needed to give you a Postgres database, and this Elephant SQL was plan A until I figured out how to do it myself. And I'm like, if I can do it myself, I'd rather do it myself. Now, the other thing that you can do is it depends on what you're doing with Postgres. But what's cool about Elephant SQL is they have a free level, and they're super talented at SQL. MySQL is easier to do what's called multi-tenant, where with one little piece of hardware you can have hundreds of people separately using it. MySQL is very good at that, but Postgres is not. And so the people at Elephant SQL, I believe they're a Swedish company if I'm not mistaken, they have figured out how to create a multi-tenant SQL so that their overall resources to support your free account are very tiny. And that's the key. Because if their overall resources to support a free account are high, then all they're going to do is annoy you to upgrade because it's costing them too much money. Python Anywhere, which we use in Django for everybody, like I told you, I went and visited them in England and I asked them how much it costs for a free account. And they said it's somewhere between 2 cents and 20 cents a month for a free account. All depends on how busy they are, because their hosting is so efficient, which means that they don't need to annoy you to upgrade from the free account. Their free account is not something that makes them unhappy. They don't care if they got thousands of free accounts, because we've given them, through Coursera, Django for Everybody, we've given them thousands of Python Anywhere, thousands of free accounts, and they're not mad about it. They're like, great, some of you, if 1 in 100 pays us, that's great, but we don't have to annoy them. The same is true for Elephant SQLs. They're pretty good at this. And so a database as service means that you need to be able to run a database client on your computer and talk to the database over the internet. And Elephant SQL does this really well. But Python Anywhere also has a Postgres option. But I think you have to pay for the Postgres on Python Anywhere. You get free MySQL and you pay for Postgres on Python Anywhere. For that very same reason, because multi-tenant Postgres is difficult, and one of the problems I had to solve, and I got extensive notes, and I hope I don't have to go back into them, making multi-tenant Postgres for pgfree.com. That was really, really, really hard, and I don't want to touch it because it works, and it auto expires, and it auto sets up, and it's really cool, and that server is like bored to death. It's really amazing how I do it, but you don't want to. What I did is just barely enough, and all the students in Postgres for Everybody are always complaining, like, how come I can't use PG for admin? Well, sorry, I'm not smart enough. I'm not smart enough to let you use PG for admin. That's the reason. But everything else works. So dbeaver and all that stuff works. So DigitalOcean. Well, DigitalOcean, there's no such thing free, right? So, if you're going to get Linux, you got a lot of ways to go get Linux. I love DigitalOcean, by the way. I love DigitalOcean. I have some DigitalOcean and I have Amazon. Those are the two places that I buy servers from. And like, imagine that I could just sit here in this office and I find an Ethernet port in this office and I plug in a little Mac Mini and make myself an account on it and have a really good network connection. To me, that's what DigitalOcean is. DigitalOcean is for 20 bucks a month or 10 bucks a month. You just got some little Linux box sitting somewhere on a server and you can log in and do stuff. And my DigitalOcean is just like, it's like what I used to do in the old days, is put a computer under my desk and run Unix on it. They didn't want me to do that, of course. They didn't want me to build a server and have inside my office at the University of Michigan and have all kinds of security holes in the server. So then they block all the incoming traffic. So I can't do it. But on DigitalOcean, if you were to look at how I run my Amazon stuff pretty professionally. I kind of keep it all organized. My DigitalOcean's like, yeah, let's throw another thing in there. Throw another thing. I guess I need a little more memory because I threw too many things in there, and I just like have everything in my DigitalOcean server. Because again, it's like a hacker's paradise because it's like your little Linux box in the cloud. I love DigitalOcean. So let's see. Quantum computing. Quantum computing. Go ahead. That's like crypto. I mean, I'm sure that quantum computing is a good idea, but it isn't a good idea now. That's the problem. At this moment where everyone's like, you should get on a train of quantum computing. You should go do it. You should do crypto. You should do this. You should do that. It's okay to do that, but everyone says that these things are like, it's the future. And the answer is, it is the future, but not now, right? It's the future. And so all these things are prototypes of things that might be a good idea and might even be normal in the future, right? And all the good ideas that we use today were crazy ideas before, and they were about the future. But you don't have to get on the bandwagon. You don't have to get on the bandwagon right away. You can wait on quantum computing for 20 years, and then it won't matter because your phone will be quantum computing and you won't even know it, and it won't matter. So studying quantum computing, unless you want to be some weird physics combination professor with computer science and physics, go ahead. It's great research, but it's completely useless in the real world. No touch bar. Yeah, kid. Battery life is killer on the old one. Yep. Crowd database. Okay. Oh, can I recommend websites with random Python practice exercises? My thesis advisor, Rich Enbody, has a website, but I need to, okay. let me see if I can find the Rich Enbody website. He teaches Python at Michigan State University, and he's crazy. He makes new assignments for every class, every semester, and then he puts his old assignments up as like open educational resources. So you can go and do all of his old assignments. I've been wanting to come up with a way that we can build a system where you could auto-grade his assignments. He could give his assignments. And so what I'll do is I'll try to find a link to that and put it up on pythonforeverybody.com. I'll ask him. Yeah, I did quantum mechanics at university, and it's still as weird many years later. Yep. Okay. How much? Holy crap! It's an hour. My intro took an hour. So let's see. What do I have on my list? What's new? Internet history, technology, security, and my new Programming for Everybody website that's online.drchuck.com. That's me rolling out slowly but surely a curriculum with the goal of a programmer. Now, the interesting thing is I actually have my first intern. So I don't know if Kunal is on or not. He might be. So one of the things that I do is, even though this concept of scalable internship is, to me, 3 to 5 years away because I got to build all these classes. I don't wait. If I have an opportunity to try something and do a small scale experiment to see how this works, I do. So let me tell you, Kunal, are you here? Kunal? No Kunal. That's okay. He's been to many of the other ones. So let me tell you the story of Kunal. So Kunal lives in India, and he took Python for Everybody, and he went to go get a bachelor's degree, and it was too expensive. So he came back home, and he decided that he was going to learn on his own. He's a smart guy, and he had a Patreon up because you can't do GitHub sponsors in India, so he put up a Patreon. And I believe I met Kunal on one of these. I believe he's been here on one of these live office hours because he's there. But the way that Kunal, the way I met him was, he started sending me pull requests on my courses. He started just sending me pull requests, and they were well thought through. And so he would just fix something in Django for Everybody, and I'd like it, and then he would fix something else. He wants to redesign my drchuck.com website, but he always uses technology that terrifies me because he's quite talented, and so I haven't yet done that. And so he kept doing stuff, and I'm like, I sent him a note. I says, who are you? Why are you doing pull requests in my projects? And he told me the story of how he was going for a bachelor's degree and he couldn't finish it, so he's going to come and try to work on his own. But he's pretty smart. He knows some stuff, and he evidenced that for me by the fact he was doing pull requests on projects I care about, both my Tsugi stuff. And so he seemed to be a great guy, communicated well, and I'm like, how about I hire you as an intern? Right? Hire you as an intern. I don't even know if this is a good idea or not. I don't know if you have enough skill to do what I want to do. But how about if I hire you as an intern? I hired him as an intern through my company, not through the university. I'd love university students to help me as interns, but I hired him as an intern. And I got him involved in my Sakai project, which is a big Java project. And Kunal knows some Java, but what we started him out on is quality assurance. And we're busily testing that product. And so I've got an intern, and it's pretty easy to come up to speed on quality assurance. And so I'm paying him to work on Sakai right now. And my theory, again, I don't know if he's here or not. He would be talking if he was. So I can talk about him. Don't. So this is my theory. My theory is that this is an internship, and I'm not paying him enough as an intern to make it his life job. My little company can't afford to pay him enough to make it be his whole job. And so my full expectation is that Kunal will work for me for a while. We'll move him from doing quality assurance and testing to writing some code, maybe some unit test code in Sakai, and then maybe he'll go start fixing some bugs in Sakai. And my guess, but that's an educational experience for him, right? He is learning how to work with a large project, with a large group of people, distributed, open source, 1 million lines of code, front end, back end, object relational mapping, Spring, Hibernate, all these things, but he's starting by QA, and he's going to be paid. Internship should be paid, in my opinion. He's going to be paid, and I'm pretty sure that about a year from now, after everything goes well, Kunal's going to tell me, he's going to say, Chuck, I have a great job offer. Can I take it? And I'll be like, Kunal, of course you can take it. We're going to be friends forever, and you're going to fiddle around with Sakai forever probably, but you got to go get that real job, right? You got to go get that real job, because the purpose of an internship is to get a real job, not to be an intern forever. And just because you gained from that internship, that doesn't mean that you owe that internship your life, right? And so I am experimenting. Kunal was a unique set of skills because he took a bunch of my courses and he knew Java. The last course you'll know when I'm ready to do the internship, the last course before the internship will be my Java for everybody. But I got to do C for everybody and hardware for everybody. Remember, we talked about this before. And so there's like several courses, and then object orientation for everybody, and then Java for everybody, and then internship. And so I've got like 4 more courses I've got to build. Damn it, I got a lot of work to do. But I am exploring what I consider to be the end state, and that is if you were to take C for everybody, hardware for everybody, algorithms for everybody, Java for everybody, I want to hire you the moment you're done with all those things as an intern. That's what I want to do. Now, I will not get to the point where I can hire 1,000 people a month, but I could hire 100 people a year. And so think of it, if you're familiar with Google Summer of Code, think of it as Dr. Chuck Summer of Code. You get paid. Google finds really sharp people, and then they give them an internship, and they actually work in open source. So one of my whole models here is open source, and the key to open source is it makes it so it's really easy to do a really in-depth internship with an open source project, because there's always work that needs to be done in open source projects, but there's no non-disclosures. It's not like you're working for IBM and you're looking at code base for DB2 or something, so you're stuck in a non-disclosure. Hey, it's open source. Anybody can do it. We don't have to like sign you, do this, do that. So I am already playing with this idea of what an internship looks like, and I'm quite open with Kunal, and I'm saying, Kunal, you are going to teach me, right? So Kunal is talented enough that he can deal with the fact that I'm not completely organized and I'm just figuring all this out, and his path through the internship is making a path for others to follow. And so he's writing documentation on how we did it, and we're going to work on that together, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a really cool development. It will be a long time before I can scale it. But if you're sitting here listening to me and you have an amazing amount of talent, not just my courses, but I want you to know Java, right? If you know Java and you're currently unemployed and you've taken a bunch of my courses, you can find me. You know, I'm not hard to find. I probably won't do more than 2 or 3 of these things at any given moment, of these internships at any given moment. If you're currently a Michigan student, I can bring you on as well, because I can pay you out of my Michigan money then if you're a University of Michigan student. I don't know how I got off on that. So, yeah, Randy, I saw. Let me read Randy's thing. Randy says, LOL, I began my QA journey in 1996 at Apple, and I'm still doing QA and loving it. Yeah, Randy, I'd seen you say something about testing in an earlier thing that's long scrolled off the screen. I saw it go by, and I'm glad you brought it back up. QA, and Randy, get ready to type because I want to ask you some questions now. QA is a great way into any organization. I always tell people, I say, don't worry about applying for the job that you want. Apply for any job in an organization you want. So Randy, in the chat, applied at Apple and got a QA job. And the key thing is everyone's like, I want to be a software architect. I'm like, yeah, maybe you don't want to be a software architect, because I am a software architect, and the amount of regret that's in the back of this head for all the architectural decisions that I made that were wrong, you're not sure you want that, right? I'm better now than I was, because when I became a software architect, first thing I did was just made decisions listening to people. And I'm like, that sounds good. And then like, no, it's not a good idea. But I didn't know that till years later. So you all want to be a software architect. Believe me, you don't. Because there is no good way to be a software architect other than screwing up a bunch. And all the mistakes that I've made are the most valuable part of my knowledge, is all the really horrible mistakes that I've made. And I made a lot of them as a software architect. QA is a great way in. So Randy, here's my pitch to you, and I'm curious if in your career you've seen any of this happen. And that is, usually the first thing you do when you start in a QA job is you are actually testing product. You've given a script, there's like 85 of these things, and you're typing and you're doing things and you're checking the script off. Yep, number 107 works, 108 works, it's like 109 works, and we got to do this every release. So it's very scalable work, and it's pretty easy to train. And it turns out the first thing you need to do if you're going to work on a product is actually use the product. And guess what QA is? Use the product, right? You're like, oh, I mean, there are people in our QA group at Sakai that know the product way better than I do, because I don't use all the features. I just work on my little corner of the features. So the QA people know this product really well. And so that means if you're going to go move into a developer role where you're expanding the product, the QA has taught you the product. So Randy, do you learn the product at QA? Randy, I'm waiting for you. Okay. Then the next thing that I think that people should do is work in a large software code base and work on unit tests. And so, no, Randy's gone. Randy, you're not. Randy probably logged off. So the next thing I think is you want to actually write code. But the danger is if you're a beginner in a large code base, you can screw up. You could put one line of code in that creates a security hole. Do you really want that pressure? But if you start writing code in unit tests, so I'll tell you how I write code. I love unit tests. And so I'm building a feature. It's going to have a user interface and some sort of back end and some complex business logic. So I build the back end and the business logic, and then I build unit tests to test the back end and business logic as much as I can. And so I know that I need these 12 pieces of stuff in the back end and business logic. And so I write the first one, I write a unit test. Looks like that one's going to be pretty good. Then I write the second one, write some unit tests, and I test it. But when I'm writing those unit tests, and again, this is me not being perfect, but when I'm writing those unit tests, I am not I'm not trying to write the world's greatest unit tests. I'm trying to test the code I'm writing. Now, there is sort of this thing that says that unit tests are supposed to test every code path, right? There's like test coverage. So if you get good at unit tests, you're into test coverage. But when I'm writing unit tests, I'm not interested in test coverage. I'm interested, did this code I just wrote work? I write a couple of unit tests, looks like the code works, right? Then I move on to the next thing. Then I write some unit tests. That code works, that code works, that code works. And then I get to the point where kind of my back end and storage is all working. And then it's like time to build user interface. And so then I go read all my unit tests and I write user interface code that talks to the back end in a user interface. And that's a lot of fun because all my back end stuff has been heavily tested. And then if I change the back end, I run all my unit tests again. But here's where an intern QA person can come in. I didn't try to get perfect coverage. I just tested what most people would call the happy path, or the happiest path and the saddest path. I do like to test the sad path too. Like, if you give this thing bad data, will it blow up, or will it give you back an error indication the way you want it? So I tend to test the happy path and the sad path, but not all paths. So now that means that I'm walking away and I built this thing, and now I got a user interface, I got some back end, I got some unit tests, and they're all working, right? But here's the thing. Now I need someone to go through, and I want them to look at every line of that back end and storage, and I want to make sure that that unit test every single line. So you got to read all this code, you got to understand what the code does, you got to read all the unit tests, you got to understand what the unit test is, and you got to add more unit tests. You're not going to break the product. You're actually making the product better, but you're also learning coding patterns. You're learning testing patterns. You're learning how to develop. And you're actually helping the product a lot, because the danger is if my unit tests, let's just call them a 50% coverage unit test, there's 50% that's not covered. So why not have someone else, as part of their education, build more unit tests? And then, now that you build unit tests and you've worked on core code, because those new unit tests might actually find bugs in the core code that you fix and then verify with unit tests, you're moving toward the point where you actually know how to write core code, right? And so you walk your way in from QA to technical QA to software development QA to core developer. And so I think it's a great way to go. Oh, yeah, Randy. Yeah, you're going to sue the product. Yeah, I saw your typo. Yeah, begin as a black box tester, and oh, you're still a black box tester. Yeah, okay, so cool. Happy path, sad path, negative testing. Yeah. So yeah, and the key thing is people think QA is not fun and it's not challenging, but I'll tell you what, Randy, you can comment and tell me what you think. But black box testing is an intellectual exercise. Black box testing is an intellectual exercise. We have some people that do what we call a gray box testing, which is kind of like you're kind of testing out here, but you're kind of watching the logs and go like, oh, that was kind of weird. I'm not looking inside the software, the source code, but I am looking at kind of like logs, and I might look at the database, and I hit a button and I'm like, how come that thing didn't get deleted? But I'm not necessarily looking at the code, so I'll call that a gray box test. Black box testing is like, I've got some keys, I hit them, and I see what happens. White box testing is you're looking at is more like this unit test stuff I was talking about, where you're kind of looking at the code and you're looking at this and you're like, let me run a test to see if I can cause that line to break right there, and that's called white box testing. So yeah. What do you think of the trend of open source softwares? Yeah, I saw that. Okay, Ked, let me read that. What do you think of the trend of open source developers sabotaging their own projects? Recent example is the developer of Colors and Faker libraries. GitHub banned his account even though the code is his own. Yeah, I saw that, and it is something that we in the developer world have got to cope with, and I would have banned the account too, right? I would have done something to save. If a person is going to start introducing security holes, or I don't exactly know what they did, but start shipping bad product just as a anger, I think that if that happens, we got to take action. Otherwise, we lose everything, right? Open source, we depend on each other. We adopt pieces of code, and it is better to freeze a piece of code and force someone to fork that code in GitHub, and then be responsible, but not let the person who is putting poison pills in the code, we got to stop it, right? And if we let it happen, then it's going to happen more. I would rather talk, we got it, and so I hope it doesn't happen, but when it does, I think we have to take action. We got to protect the open source ecosystem. So if bad people in open source do bad things, we've got to do stuff, and there's no freedom. No, sorry. If people depend on you, you don't have the same freedom. You cannot. If people, working on HTTPS start putting backdoors in because they're mad, the question, and I don't know enough about the faker incident, the question is, why did the person get mad, right? I mean, we seem, as developers, we want to build something that people love and depend on, like Sakai and Sugi, all the things, and Python for everybody. I'm just so honored by the fact that people depend on my work. Why would I put like a poison pill that tries to steal your credit card numbers just because you're taking a Python class, right? What caused this person to do it? And I don't know. Maybe I'll never know. Maybe someone can tell me what happened in that situation, because I just found out about it last week. Part of the problem, I think, is that there is a frustration in open source that is not new, but it's getting even more annoying. And that is that people really don't appreciate the benefits they're getting from others. And what needs to happen is there needs to be an economy, a market, where those who make use of open source projects can directly benefit the projects themselves, right? And so let me see if I can find something here to give you an example of this. Go to GitHub, go to Sakai project. Okay, so go ahead and take my screen. You see this little sponsoring button in GitHub? Now, the amount of people that people sponsor, let's see how much I'm sponsoring. Oh, these are the other sponsors. Oh, I'm not even sponsoring Sakai. Well, maybe I should sponsor Sakai. So let's sponsor it. And so let's just give them $10 a month. I got some sponsors. Sponsor CSEV. Wait a sec. I can't sponsor myself. Oh, I am already sponsoring it. It says I'm sponsoring it. Well, whatever. So GitHub is finding ways to pay, right? So GitHub is collecting money from me and giving money. And giving it to this project. I want to make it so that yeah, I got to find where the sponsor is. Like, how about we make a $10,000 sponsor level, right? Somebody like, Sakai is awesome. I want to pay $10,000. That'd be fine. And the other thing is I gain money. If people sponsor me, I don't actually need the money. So what I do is I send it all back out in sponsors. And if you take a look at let's see if I can figure it out. Let's see about my sponsors, my sponsorships. So here is who I'm sponsoring. And I'll show you how I figured all these people out. So I'm sponsoring FreeCodeCamp for $100 a month. Actually, I give them separate money too, so it's not more than that. And I'm just sponsoring whenever I find myself in a situation where I insist on sponsoring something. And now let me show you something else. So part of the problem is that like GitHub sponsors don't work in India. And I was telling you about that with Canal, right? But they're using Patreon. So you can sponsor stuff. And I got just a few people on Patreon, but let me see if I can't figure something out here. Where can I find this? CD. Tsugi. Okay, so this is the software. Oh, yay, yay, yay. I got it. I guessed it. Okay. So I guessed it. And so this Sugi stuff that runs Python for everybody, if you look at the source code, I have a bunch of libraries, and this is my composer file that has every one of these lines is a library. I'm using Laravel and React this, and Symfony Translation, and Symfony Mime, Symfony Event Dispatcher, and these actually include things that then I'm also using. And I can actually type a command here. Composer is the command, is the command that you say, load all my dependencies, load all these libraries. Well, Composer now has added a feature called Composer Fund. And if you type Composer Fund, it shows you all of the people. So let's see, Composer packages. It's called Packagist. So all these packages are stored on a place called Packagist. And let's just take a look at one of these things. Let's look at Guzzle HTTP. Turns out that Guzzle HTTP is essential to Django for everybody and web applications for everybody. And I use Guzzle as the way that I read your website when I'm doing that. So I depend on Guzzle. And so Guzzle HTTP, let's just see here. And you see this package place where I download this software from, they've got a thing that says, here are the people. Graham Campbell, Nyholm. So let's go see Graham Campbell. Graham Campbell is a GitHub person, right? And look at that. I'm sponsoring Graham. And I sponsored Graham because I typed this command. And I went through, let's go see if I'm sponsoring Nyholm. I bet I am. Nyholm. Come on. I'm not sponsoring him. Well, I'm going to sponsor him. So we're going to sponsor him. $50 a month. I'm going to give you $5 a month. I'm not doing too much, but you should give a lot more. So there we go. I'm going to give this guy $5 a month. So Nyholm, I just saw that Nyholm. So here's the thing. What was the software Log4j? There's Log4j. Let's find it. Log4j. See if I can find it. So there was a bug in Log4j. I think it was Log4j 2. And then we got to find the contributors here. Let's just look at the commits. There was a big security hole in this. Is this the guy that did it? And this is like a big deal, and they fixed it. No, I want to see him. I want to see him. Whoa, he's working on Log4j, and I'm not sponsoring him. Hang on, I got to sponsor him now too. $42 a month. I know what that number is for. So yeah, we'll sponsor him too. Where was the guy? There was a guy that was Log4j contributor. I'll see if I can remember who it was. I want to say, is it this guy? So that's the guy just sponsored, Gary Gregory. Let's just go see if this guy's sponsored. Yeah, Ralph Goers. So, about a month ago, I don't know what it was, this piece of software, Log4j, which is a Java application that's in use. Thank heaven we were like in Log4j 1 in Sakai, and now we're Log4j 2, but we haven't released that yet, right? And so, are you seeing my screen? Is my screen working? Yeah, Log4j. I hope my screen is working. Give me a thumbs up from the control room if the. Okay, good. Okay, so this Log4j, Apache Log4j, was like there's a security hole. They released something and they made a little security hole in it, and this like Ralph guy is just some random person who's a nice person that's working on this thing that we all depend on. And so a bunch of people are like, wow, open source, blah, 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 blah. So I did what any decent open source person should have done was I went to this Ralph guy's account and I sponsored him. So this guy, he's fixing these security holes. He's getting yelled at by people. His phone's ringing off the hook. And he's just working part-time on this thing. But, so I got in early. I think, oh, Amazon Web Services sponsored him too. How much? No, I guess they don't say. So Amazon sponsored him. Now see that? I hope Amazon is sponsoring them like $1,000 a month. Come on. Amazon, that's cool. That's the first I'd seen that. That's really cool. And so, you know, when I came here that morning that Log4j, the morning that the Log4j thing went out, I was like sponsor 30, and that people have just been sponsoring this guy and sponsoring this guy. And this is how it ought to work. This is how it ought to work, right? This person, our Ralph Goers, should get some sponsors. Now, the thing is not everybody gets 114 sponsors. But I don't know. I'm going to guess this guy's making $2,000-3,000 a month for something he used to do for free. Now, the thing I've learned in my whole life is that if you are willing to do something for free and you get paid to do that, that creates the greatest creativity, joy, etc., etc., etc. So everybody watching, I would say, find ways to give back. And so if you see me, if you look at my account, you see actually I can afford it, right? If you look at me and you see who I'm sponsoring, I just sponsored 2 more people while we were sitting here, right? So I'm sponsoring 48 organizations, and I'm spending $817 a month in sponsors. I do not expect that the people watching this, everybody can spend $817 a month. I can. The reason I can is because you pay for certificates on Coursera and edX, and I get some of that money. So your certificates on Coursera and edX, $817 of those certificates is going to places like FreeCodeCamp, all these wonderful people, all these wonderful projects. Graham, yeah, I sponsored him August. I don't know, if we go down, we'll find the guy. Oh, Ed Crew, yeah. So, I mean, every time I see it, and then there's another thing called NPM for Node Package Manager, and there's a way to find the people going to get money. And actually, GitHub will help you figure out, if you store stuff in GitHub, GitHub will help you figure out, so look at that. I'm sponsoring Ralph since December 12th. It must be that December 12th was when that whole thing came out, right? And so I give everybody $5, or sometimes, I don't know, why am I sponsoring Adam so much? I think I might have asked him for a feature. Oh, Full Calendar. No, that's because Sakai is trying to use Full Calendar, and this guy says he's not going to go open source, so this Adam Shaw in Full Calendar, this is a really cool piece of software, Full Calendar. It is used by tons of people. And Adam Shaw is the main developer on this Full Calendar thing. And he is committed to doing open source. He's got a good job. But what if somebody pisses him off? What if somebody says, Adam, why don't you fix this? Your release 2.7.3 is like blah, 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 blah. Like, Adam would rightly say, like, who are you to talk, dude? I work part-time. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I've been releasing, and yeah, I made a mistake on Tuesday that I fixed on Wednesday. Shut up. The problem is sometimes these people don't let it roll off their back, right? And sometimes these people are like, you know what, how about this? I'll change the damn license. It ain't Apache anymore. It's copyright, all rights reserved. I'm going to make a thing called fullcalendar.com, and you got to pay me now. And now all the people that got this are screwed because they adopted it as open source, and this Adam guy got mad. And we're going back to the color stuff and the whatever. We're way back now. That's the point. There is a brewing anger in the open source community about how open source creates billion or trillion-dollar companies that don't then give back. Looking at you, Canvas. Billion-dollar companies that give absolute crap back, and when asked, they dump on open source. Oh yeah, they're not like us. We're a big billion-dollar company. Yeah. Except without them, we wouldn't even exist. But no, I'm not going to tell anybody that, right? And so this whole thing about the the issue of taking away the guy's GitHub account. I forgot what product it is. Yeah. So that was a question a long time ago. Yeah. OSS is not charity. Yeah. Log4j. Shaista. Hi, I'm a high school junior. This will be a lead into the thing I'm going to do for the last 30 minutes. Hi, I'm a high school junior who was never familiar with programming at all before taking your course. Now, after completing 3 courses of your Python specialization, I've fallen in love with computer science. That's exactly what I want to happen. Computer science, I'm rough on computer science at times, but I love it. But what I want is, if you choose computer science, you should choose it out of joy, not out of like, oh no, here I go, it's going to be the most miserable 4 years of my life. No, computer science is cool. But if you're not prepared, computer science is freaking miserable. Yeah, that was a good question, kid. What was the software we were talking about that the guy messed up? Faker, that's it. Faker.js. That was, yeah, thanks. I got it at the same time you got it, so it was Faker. Okay, Linux, Windows, or Hackintosh. Windows for gaming, Linux for servers, Macintosh to carry around. I'm not going to do a Hackintosh. Okay. So let me take the next 24 minutes and do a TED Talk. Okay? So let me close all these tabs. I always get too many tabs here. So this TED Talk is, maybe someday the TED people will actually boom. Okay. So here's a website you can go look at. https://www.cpfree.org. Hey Stephen, could you put that in the chat? cpfree.org. If you're still here, Stephen, or anybody can put it in the chat. www.cp4e.org. Now, cpfree.org is homage to cp4e.com, which I can't get, which I believe this actually belongs to Guido van Rossum, if I'm not mistaken. And the idea is in the late 90s, cp.com, in the late 90s, one of the big things that was happening with Python was trying to create high school programs. And the Washington, D.C. area, the Alexandria, Virginia area, there were some people, you can go back and see this moment where there was just a bunch of cool nerds that were trying to figure out a way to get programming into high schools and use Python as the vehicle for it, right? And so, oh no, that's not the run I'm thinking about. I want to buy that one from them. Yeah, not that one. Okay. So, oh, here's the CP4E essay. We'll go to this. This is on the Python website. And so my TED Talk for the next 20 minutes is what happened to women in computer science, and why is it that it is difficult for women to find their way into computer science. And so if you go back to the 1960s and look at my graph here, this is not my graph, it's from NPR. If you go back to the 60s, you had this situation where, in general, women were rare in education, right? And then you see from the 60s, you could say women's lib, hippie movement, whatever you want, sort of just generally, women finding better places in society, and they're finding their own way. So in the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s, you see women just kind of generally doing really, really well in all the fields. And you find that in medical school, law school, physical sciences, you see today, they're about 50%, right? It's what it should be. It's quite natural. And so you just see this thing where the women became advocates. They felt that it was their right to be part of these things. You could have do we think at all about a woman doctor? Our family doctor is a woman. Do we even go like, huh? Weird. You're the only woman I've ever met who's a doctor. No, 50%. But that happened. It wasn't always like that. There was a time when it was all of education was male dominated, and then over from 1960 to 2000, things got better. And a lot of fields got better, except one. And so computer science started with plenty of people, the normal amount. And then here in 1983, something happened. Computer science's percentage of women diverged from general education's percentage of women. Okay? And now it went up. There were more women involved in computer science in 1984 than today. Okay? Looks like, according to this graph, less than half the percentage of women involved in computer science today than were in 1984. What happened? Well, let me start. And this is where being old helps. I graduated from high school in 1975. And I went to college because my parents said, go to college. Don't know why, didn't know what I was going to do. Showed up on campus. First semester, they say, we're putting everybody in this programming class. I'm like, okay, I don't care. Just put me in some classes. I'm mostly interested in pinball and junk food. That's what I was going to college for, is pinball and junk food. So they put me in computer science. And I've told the story about how I was a terrible failure for the first 7 weeks of class, and I was a super genius the last 7 weeks of class. I got a D in that class, but was permanently addicted to computing. I wasn't a computer science major, but I changed, after the first semester, I changed to computer science. And so I went into, I want to know everything I can about this really new creature. And that's why when I teach Python for everybody, I talk about it as you're communicating with a thing, because I thought of it that way when I was first learning. I'm like, I love this thing. I love talking to computers. I love giving them instructions and then watching what they do with their instructions and then making my instructions to them more sophisticated and marveling at what computers could do. So I want to know everything I can. So I went into computer science. And when I went into computer science was 1975. And in 1975, computer science was a ragtag bunch of people who in the faculty that just kind of happened onto it. In the 1950s and the 60s, anybody could do computer science, right? You know, and we see this movie Hidden Figures. The Hidden Figures movie, you know, was about 3 black women that were computer programmers for NASA. And I would encourage you to watch the Hidden Figures movie, because what it showed you, and again, this is more the 60s, not the 70s. What it showed you was that programming was seen as secretarial work almost, because they had to do some calculations, and so you wrote these programs that were, you know, a few thousand lines long, and they calculated things, math things that were difficult to calculate by hand. And if you go even further back, the first thing that was called a computer is women at adding machines, and they would run long calculations. And so you'd have this whole thing of secretary types typing on machines, and we called them computers because what they did all day long was compute. And so when early electronic computers came along, it was not all that outrageous to expect that the same women who were doing the computing in the first place would automate that by writing on punch cards short little programs, often in the language Fortran, which is what Hidden Figures is about. And then realizing that, wow, as our programs get longer, we can do things like, you know, calculate complete tracks out in space for NASA things and do all these things. And so they became quickly, because programming is not that hard, they became very sophisticated and then became an essential part of the team at NASA that did the stuff in the 60s and the 70s. And how you became chosen as a person to do programming was kind of random. It's who's ever there. And it wasn't seen as like a big deal. Programming was just a different thing. Some people were cooks. Some people drove truck. And some people programmed. And it was just a thing, right? And again, because of this history, prehistory of women doing computing, they also had a natural talent for automated computing, because all that's programming is automated computing. And so at universities, the same kind of thing happened. Programmers in the 60s and the 70s, there was no computer science department. There was an electrical engineering department that like built computers, and there was like physics departments that used computers, and there were, you know, astronomy, astrology, meteorology, not astrology, meteorology, places that needed computers. And in those fields that were either building or using computers, there was a random, at that point, let's just say 1/3 of the people in those fields were women. And some of those women were like, you know what? I don't like physics so much anymore. I'm just gonna switch over and be a computer person, because that's fun. I like the physics and all, but man, just writing code is even more fun. And these computers are changing, and I want to be part of the building of these computers and the assessing and understanding of these computers. And so the first generation of computer programming faculty were, in a sense, just a random sample of the people across the university, which meant that you got 2/3 men, 1/3 women. But nobody felt any different. There was no, like, it wasn't like women were weird. And so I walk into my first course, and one of my teachers is Helen Spence. And if you go Michigan State University, Helen Spence, she's long passed away, but she started as a grad student in the physics department. And then she just kind of like said, I kind of like computers more than physics. And so by the time I arrived, she was on the faculty. And there was really nothing weird about having a woman on the faculty. It wasn't extraordinary. It wasn't like they recruited a woman to be on the faculty. Helen just happened to be there and just sort of flowed over. It wasn't all women, but there was no sense that there was a difference. And as a teacher, we talked about this at the beginning, you learn different things from different people, different styles. College is not just about knowledge. College is about learning how to be a person, and different kinds of teachers with totally different things. So what Helen taught, the class she taught, was the operating systems class. And Helen built, in effect, the first autograder that I ever interacted with. And she built a thing that she called the HMS, which are her initials, Helen something Spence. Well, it was HMS. Oh, I think that's, it's like Helen Spence, but the M is like for boats, I guess. The HMS 5050, which was a hypothetical computer hardware, piece of computer hardware. And you had to write code that plugged into the HMS 5050 to do things like build a file system, manage a task queue, do task switching, store and save and restore registers on context switch. For anybody who's a computer scientist, that's what operating systems do. They're sharing resources, and then the simulator would give you a bunch of jobs, and then you would have to kind of schedule those jobs and finish them, and notice when they started and notice when they stopped, notice when they had to wait for I/O, and then get their I/O done. So you learned how to write an operating system in a completely fake auto-graded operating system environment. Sound familiar, right? And so she was just a joyful teacher having a good time writing a bunch of code in her office that then became the code that we were playing with as the class that we took, right? And she wasn't my only teacher, but she was a wonderful teacher, and she was teaching one of the more advanced classes in that. And so it was pretty normal in the mid-70s to just stumble in and have a random sampling of males and females, and no misogyny, no nothing. It was just normal. So what happened? Something obviously happened. So we go back to the graph. We see that in 1984 was the highest women ever got in computer science, and it's been downhill ever since. So it turns out that there were two events that, to me, destroyed computer science and changed computer science from computer programming, curiosity-driven learning, to computer science, which is the study of kind of arcane things and getting really good. Computer science is not bad. The problem is in the 1970s, there was this sort of, I'll call it cyber stupidity. And machine learning is our current version of cyber stupidity. Cyber stupidity are people who see amazing things that computers can do, which are in their domain of skill, and assume that computers can do things that aren't in their domain of skill, right? And so it's really good at like running calculations for weather. Does that mean that it can that it can predict, you know, this, that, or the other thing? So we see computers doing certain things well, and we ascribe them way out of bounds. So one of the jokes we had back in the 70s was there was this fellow called Gerard P. Weig, that was his name, and his theory is that, you know, by 1980, there would be no need to write programs anymore because we would have written a program that would write more programs. And that's all we needed in 1980. I mean, it was done. You don't need, programmers are going to be obsolete. That's the kind of stupid optimism that is still today. Still today. There are things that can be automated, but not everything. And so again, we have this problem of this much works, so we imagine that this much works, and that's wrong. So there was a battle in computer science, and you could imagine that what we're really doing is we're founding computer science as a field in the mid-70s. And the argument was, is computer science a field of programming, or is it more a field of theory and mathematics? So is computer science not really a science? Because a lot of things that call themselves sciences aren't sciences, like social science is not science. Social science is kind of a study, right? Computer science, I think in the early days, was not really a science. And in the 70s, there was an effort made to make it more respectable and make it deserve the word science in its title. And you can see an article here from Hopper, the battle between Grace Hopper and Edgar Dijkstra. I just lost what? Oh, yeah. I'm watching. I'll probably end up going over about 5-8 minutes. And so this is a paper written by a dear friend of mine, Sandy Payette. She's also an open source person. She founded a project called Fedora, not the operating system, but the digital library system. And she's been somebody I've known for the past 20 years. She came to University of Michigan. She just got her PhD late in life like me. And she has done some studies on sort of gender and programming. And she breaks it down. And she focuses on this moment where there was a battle over the definition of computer science. And there were two sides to it. There was Grace Hopper on one side, and there's a Grace Hopper conference now, and then Edgar Dijkstra. And the simple position that Grace took was programming is fun. We should teach it like it's fun. We should play with these computers and build cool stuff and do all kinds of fun stuff. Edgar was, no, that's irresponsible. You need to be mathematically precise. We need to find the underlying theory and nature of computing. Actually writing programs, not so much. The nature of programming, the mathematical underpinning. That's kind of like the mathematical underpinning of physics. Wouldn't that be great if there was in programming mathematical underpinnings and we could discover them and be like the physics field? That's finding a truth underneath it all, like physics and mathematics. Or, as Grace Hopper would have us do, Grace Hopper would tell us, it's a great job. I really would rather be a programmer than like a truck driver because I feel creative and I'm doing cool stuff and I'm helping people out, and they come and they got some problem and I run a little Fortran program and then I get them the data and they just seem to love me and it's all great, right? I write a little code, write some autograder, you take a Python class, you like me. Me and Grace are like the same, right? And so there was a battle in academia, and the battle came down to, is this a science, or that's the male view, and the female view is this is a profession. It's a profession. It's not a science. And you can probably guess who won and who lost. The male perspective, Edgar Dijkstra, won, and the female perspective lost. And it didn't change how programming was working. It didn't change what programming meant. What it changed was how we taught programming. And the first thing they did once they won this late 60s battle for the soul of computer science is they got together and they created a document called ACM CS1. This is a document that is a recommendation for what you should learn in computer science. This is the curriculum. CS1 stands for Computer Science 1, which is the first course you're supposed to take. Literally the first course you're supposed to take. And it tells you what to do. It tells you what week. It tells you how these classes work together. Sorting and searching, trees, file terminology, linkers and loaders, macros, addressing techniques, data representation, right? Algorithms, data structures, order of algorithms, mathematical foundations of performance. So in 1978, they said to everybody who was going to be computer science, this is what you should teach in the first class. They revised it in 1984, which is version 2 of what the first computer science class should do. Right? So here we are sitting here. And if you look at this page right here, you can really see the structure of every programming course that's ever been built in a computer science department. Most of the people who think they know why we have a gender problem in computer science weren't even born before this curriculum was laid down. They weren't even born. And they're smart. And the answer is, whatever you saw in computer science, whatever was right or was wrong, it was stuck in this structure. It was stuck in the structure of ACM CS1. You go to Amazon and you say CS1 textbook, and you will find tens of, whoa, we moved it. It went away. Come back. Here we go. Oh, crap. Now I need the password. I should have been moving the mouse more, shouldn't I? Uh-oh. We can't tell the password on TV. Okay. I'll just keep talking. I'll just keep talking. Because you probably... So the problem is that this is so much in the ancient history. But if you come to this campus or any other computer science department that's respectable, they are still teaching this exact curriculum. And that is the theory curriculum, the science curriculum. Okay? So it meant that the courses that were taught, if we go back, the courses from 1980 to 1990 changed. That first programming course used to be like, hey, let's go code. Let's have some fun. By 1990, it's like, welcome to computer science. You have joined the priesthood of mathematics. You must learn. And this is where everyone drops out of computer science. Like, what do you mean? Computers are cool. I love computers. Sorry, they're not cool here. It's math. And so why would you join a field that the very first course you ever take is so off-putting? And it turns out that I went through this. I started in computer science when it was fun and open, and I finished computer science when they were all like arrogant jerks and full of them, so full. The faculty members in computer science are so full of themselves, right? That somehow if you don't want to be computer science, get out. And it turns out the whole thing about if you don't want computer science, get out, it turns out that women leave more often than men when you tell them that. Like, if you don't want to do it, get out. And so now that's what we've got, right? Now, there's another essay, 1990, the Computer Programming for Everybody essay, that was written by Guido van Rossum, that said, look, man, we got to reclaim this. We got to make programming fun again. We got to get it in high schools. We got to make it interesting. We've got to make it so everybody can do it. Like most good ideas, this was a grant that was never funded. Because, again, the knuckleheads that ran the show believed they were right. And so now you can kind of see how the end of this particular story is where I started today. And that is, I have lived this. I have seen a computer science that was friendly, welcoming, and fun. I have seen a computer science that became angry, grumpy, and theory. And what I am creating with Python for everybody, Django for everybody, web applications for everybody, Postgres for everybody, C for everybody, data structures for everybody, hardware for everybody, Java for everybody, is what I'm creating for you is the curriculum that in 1970 I encountered. And that is a curriculum that treats programming as a field, not saying that all programming is computer science. I am rebuilding a gender-neutral, talent-neutral programming. I'm going back to the Grace Hopper way of thinking about it. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. And you can learn it. And it's fascinating. It's joy. There's joy in programming. And so that's what I'm building. I am building a curriculum that I hope allows hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people to join the ranks of programmers. And I'm going to try to solve it. I got 10 more good years of my life, and I'm going to work really hard on making this happen. And I've just got done sort of smashing computer science and kicking them while they're down and stuff. And I'm sure there's some computer science professors that are going to watch this afterwards, and I'm going to get some mean emails from people I care dearly about. So I better stop those emails, or at least kind of defend myself a little bit. There is literally nothing wrong with computer science, okay? I have 3 degrees in computer science, and I would have had it no other way. I love computer science. I did not enjoy all those classes, I'll be honest, but I enjoyed what those classes forced me to learn. When you go through medical school, they push you into a lot of corners that maybe you're not going to go in your career, but they push you harder so that when you go become a doctor, you're ready. You don't want to just be barely passing to be a doctor. You want to be good. And the same is true for computer scientists. It's difficult to be a good computer scientist, but when you bring a computer scientist to a programming problem, there's a lot of good in that. So I'm not saying that anybody listening here shouldn't go get a degree in computer science. What I do feel is that computer science should stop pretending that the only path to learning how to program is computer science, because honestly, computer science ruins more programmers than it helps. The way it usually works is you go to a school like IIT or MIT or University of Michigan, you get an undergraduate degree in computer science, you learn a bunch of stupid things that make you good on HackerRank, you go to Google, you pass an interview. Because of what you've been taught, Google doesn't give a crap about what that interview question is about, but they know that if you can pass that interview, in the next 2 years, they can pay you $200,000 a year to learn what Google needs you to know. Meaning that you're not ready to work at Google with a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Michigan, but you are ready to learn. And they're going to teach you how to program, and how to program in large, complex systems. Computer science never does that. Computer science is wrong. What I'm doing is I'm bypassing it. I'm saying, how about I start here and never lose joy and take you all the way to the point where you're actually a useful professional. And along the way, if you're like, you know what? I am really curious how operating systems work. I am really curious how a compiler works. I am really curious why hash maps are so darn fast, how dictionaries work. Then you can go take a computer science degree, and you're going to be really useful. Because all us programmers, we need an operating system. We need hardware. We need fast networks. We need great displays. And those only come from highly trained computer scientists and highly trained electrical engineers and material scientists and physicists. Wi-Fi. Who figured out Wi-Fi? It's not a bunch of programmers. It's computer scientists. It's electrical engineers and physicists. Thank you. Right? And so the key thing is it's not about one or the other. It's about putting people in computer science who are going to be good at computer science and not telling them if they're not good at computer science, they can't be a programmer. And that's why my ultimate brand is Programming for Everybody. The curriculum to become a programmer without having to go through computer science is called Programming for Everybody. And with that, I'm going to check to see if we got any good questions. And hopefully I won't get fired between now and next month for being mean to computer scientists. So here we go. Da-da-da-da, no one's disagreeing with me. No one is disagreeing. Everyone's nice. What's wrong here? Old habits die hard. Chalk. Steven's answering technical support questions during my talk. Thank you, Steven. I always thank you. Okay, well, it is 12:07. I said I was going to go about 5 minutes over. And so with that, I think we should wrap this up and thank the folks in the control room for yet another fun time. And we'll see you in about a month.